Hello there. I've just published an essay about the voice and its power to synchronize and to bring us into coherence. I felt very passionate about writing this essay because I feel that in our current culture, there is a lot of emphasis on regulation, like we talk about nervous system regulation, about identities and how to change the identities so it can fit what really is, and there is a lot of sense of urgency to control somehow the way things are, and kind of hoping that through this control we can create something that feels safe and that feels good, which makes a lot of sense from one aspect. But we also know that regulation is something that can really limit the scope and quality of expression, that when there are external rules to something, we can't really let the thing express itself or like emanate its own form from within. Working with voice for over 20 years has really shown me what is this creative element when it's coming from the inside out, when we're able to locate a certain sense of silence or stillness, and from that place to express or to allow to emanate what is really us, and to allow that to kind of shape who we are. So I can see that on the emotional, psychological level, but I can see it really on the somatic level and the well-being and health level. I can see how bodies that were super tense and held through voice work get to be soft and open, and how the voice kind of informs the whole system and really can introduce something new into the mix. So today I would like to have a little meeting with you where we read together through my essay, which I will also link the essay below. It's on Substack, and you can open the link and sort of have me be a companion making commentary about the essay. So you can sort of look at the essay, read it a little bit, and then listen also to my lesson. And I really hope you enjoy this and that it will be inspiring and informative, and hopefully will connect you better to your own voice, which is what my ultimate purpose is. So let us begin. So yeah, open the link, and we are in this essay on my plexus, weaving a sound reality. So I will explain what is exactly plexus in this essay quite thoroughly, but plexus is my platform, or what I've been researching for the past 20 years. It's a type of voice work that is very much oriented towards synchronization. It has a lot of parts which are about freeing, liberating, exploring your own voice, discovering the power of your own voice. But it creates an inner synchronization in your own body with your own psyche. So there's first this synchronization, but then it opens into a group where, when we meet together in a group with three voices, there is a certain type of practice which I call plexus, which is interweaving our listening into one composite kind of connected system. And with this system, with like 4 or 40 or 400 people, the amount of listening and information that you can receive is like exponentially increasing. So that's kind of a tiny moment about plexus. I'm going to dive more into that soon. Synchronization, from regulation to right relation, discovering voice as the ultimate agent of coherence. 1. We made it. We are everywhere all at once, scattered across devices, time zones, and infinite data feeds, perpetually plugged and in and influenced. We are finding ourselves both triggered and exhausted in a flickering, disembodied terrain. I think everyone can relate to that. In social media age, where we feel this hyperconnectivity, we are knowing what everyone is doing at all times, and yet there is a sense of disconnection and disassociation because it's all happening way too fast, way too much, and yeah, we lose track of where we are. We search for meaning in a chaos of narratives, only to discover that the perpetual ground itself has shifted. What was once the individual persona woven in a stable local social structure is now a globally shared, dislocated echo chamber of stories, desires, and patterns, duplicated and broadcasted with bewildering cacophony. So, what I'm basically saying is that this persona, what Jung is calling persona, um, this kind of surface or um, manufactured structure of the personality that is literally made in order to survive in society. It's like what I had to create in order for me to handle and survive social interaction. It's not really who I am, it's the mask or the filter from which I can meet society and how I fit into society. And this has been sort of glued together and created a giant surface where what we see on social media often is this personalities, this persona. Um, yeah, I think I don't have to say more about that. This age has created a collective surface, a vast persona of an unprecedented scale, and its core wounding is disorientation. So, how do you find yourself wanting to connect, but meeting this personality, duplications, expression? How do you orient in that? As identity melts around the edges, we feel lost. Being lost, we call out. And in that very call, a pathway is revealed. So the voice is really showing us, like, through the need to connect. And I write about that in previous essay. For the deep desire to connect, the voice is creating a channel, and in that channel also answers then arrive. So the channel is literally showing us the path. The need is showing us the path. The dissolution of a stable identity into chaotic multiplicity opens the opportunity to discover the organizing agent within the field. Uniquely emanating both freedom and order, the voice is the living thread weaving inner singularity with collective coherence. The more wired and tired we become as a collective, the more we are called to discover a new path of vocal orientation. But first, let us clarify our terms, right? So I will explain that also more down below, but the idea is that our vibrational imprint, the way we emanate, not just our heard voice, but our thoughts, our feelings, our vibe, this is what I call voice. And this is a vibrational emanation that is ongoing constantly, again and again and again, creating, emanating who we are, and then allowing how our signal meets reality to reflect, to come back to us. And this is actually the sound experience. So when I talk about voice, I don't just mean the spoken or heard voice. I mean the way we vibrate in the vibrational field. For me, that's voice. And it has a special, because it's so connected to the heard voice, observing, exploring, inquiring into the heard voice, into the speaking, the toning, the yawning, the crying, the yelling, whatever it is, we get sort of a fractal of the whole manifestation process. So we can observe our voice, and through that really get to know and also transform the way we vibrate and emanate in the field. But we'll get into that. 2, from regulation to synchronization. So now we're going to explore these two terms of regulation and synchronization, and what's the difference, and why am I calling to use one over the other. So synchronization is the fundamental principle of a living system, not regulation. By synchronization, we mean self-arising, bottom-up dynamic organization. By regulation, we mean control imposed top-down, guided by off-system parameters, right? So in biological systems, synchronization precedes regulation. Heart cells synchronize before the autonomic nervous system affects them. Neural oscillations synchronize before executive control regulates behavior. And of course, through the vagus nerve, voice synchronizes heart rhythms, breath, facial expression, and listening capacity at once. It is the organism's primary cross-system coordinator. So we see regulation is essential, but it is secondary. It is a tool rather than what the system always does. The word regulation itself derives from the Latin regula, which means rules, straight edge, standard. Whether expressed as homeostasis or identity, government, or status quo, regulation aims to limit the range and quality of expression for the sake of what already exists. Regulation conserves form, synchronization generates or transforms form. Our current culture relies almost exclusively on regulation. Through identity politics, neurodivergent labeling, when you identify as a nervous system or when you identify as an attachment style, you pick your type and keep to your lane. It's an understand the pattern and get a strategy to deal with it kind of world. And while some regulation is essential in keeping and maintaining existing states, we need to remember what precedes and sets them to begin with. Someone put them into place, these patterns. Who was that? So it's to understand that we are becoming aware of ourselves already created. And already created, we can ask how were we created and who created us. And that question can lead us to how we can create today and who we are when we create. Enter the voice. Life and self are not mindless machines requiring management. They are interwoven sentient fields of vibration that oscillate, resonate, and amplify each other when in consonance. In this context, the voice emerges as the ultimate synchronizer in training the biological, psychic, and cultural realms. Voice is the experiential interface between intention, body, feedback, and field. It connects all of these. It is a real-time coherence test. If you see a cup, just by looking at it, you might not know whether it's made of glass, plastic, or ceramics. Tap on it, and the sound immediately reveals its material and structure. The same happens when we allow our voice to sound unobstructed. We get to know ourselves in an intimate way that is beyond explaining. It really gives us the feeling of what we're made of, how we are built, and what kind of emotion or sense of vitality we have. It gives us a lot of information way beyond what we can explain or verbalize with our minds. By voice, I mean awareness in movement, emanating from stillness through matter into a touch experience. So voice is actually the movement between stillness into that moment where the sound waves are touching your body. So for me, this notion of touch experience is very crucial because the voice is literally touching and meeting, because it is a connector. We can really talk about the moment where the voice is arriving and touching and never being or touching ourselves, right? So there is a sense of arriving with voice. And where is it arriving from? It's arriving from the source, which is stillness, which is beyond form, which is before and forever, right? So voice is not just the heard voice. We talked about it. Yet through its audibility, it shows as the most intimate fractal of the entire process of manifestation. So it's sort of like a way to concentrate on something very small and clear, not so small, but like focused. And it helps us to understand the entire way of how we manifest and who we are as we manifest. So shifting from regulation to synchronization means expanding our scope of listening and graduating into a new phase of consciousness, where we don't go around the world thinking things should be a certain way and trying to control everything, but we understand that we are already a very intricate synchronized system, and we can and we should also synchronize more and more with available natural rhythms, cycles, um, celestial bodies, etc. Like the way we can literally experience harmonies through synchronization. Words do matter, right? Like it's not just a semantic conversation. It's really like, how do we understand listening and following? Words do matter. They direct how we think and therefore influence our actions, decisions, and overall experience. Our voice can be the agent, sensing into that new possibility, experiencing harmony as both order and freedom, right? Because we have we're sensing a paradox, because when we are freely expressing ourselves, we are our awareness is going towards the heard voice, and so we lose the environment and we sort of lose harmony, the possibility to be organized within what's already existing. And then when we really are attuned to the environment, we might lose touch with our own voice. And so, like, it's not a theory. Like, everyone that works with expression, with voice, knows this paradox, that how can I maintain both deep listening into my own signal and like very attuned and tuned awareness of whatever is going on around me, and how can I weave into that? And working with voice really gives us like a tangible way to work on it that's not intellectual, it's not just in the mind, but it's also connected to the body. I'm saying that regulation-based governance can and should no longer be what orients us in our understandings, decisions, and actions in reality. Instead, I suggest that our voice, in all its fractal expressions, as consciousness moves from silence to touch, expresses an intelligence which can offer a type of transpersonal guidance to consciously participate in the natural synchronization process. So the voice is sort of, I would say, an expression of, can be an expression of the higher self. So it holds an intelligence of health and well-being that can really entrain and tune the system into coherence. The voice is not merely a talent, of course. It is our unique, creative, and receptive channel. And if you are reading this, or if you are listening to or watching this video, you do have a voice. So even if you are afraid of singing, even if you think you don't have a voice, or somebody told you that you don't have a voice, if you're able to listen to me, if you're able to follow my words, that means that you have a voice. Your voice is following me right now. And how can you bring that awareness, this ability to listen and to understand, and to allow it to also sound and emanate? So we're gonna look into that as well. So the meaning of voice work for the collective, this is now beyond the person. On the horizon is the possibility of liberated voices weaving together, intentionally generating entrained plexi, expanding human capacity to perceive, transmit, and harmonize. Plexus is an initiatory laboratory specializing in such vocal synchronization. So what I'm super passionate about is the possibility that we can become aware of the power of our voice, each on their own, and then come together and see how we can interweave our voices, because what we're able to do in terms of synchronization and coherence in one system can also expand into groups. And then we can really create very intricate, beautiful plexus that is it's greater than the sum of its parts. It's creating an instrument that is vast. Yeah. So plexus, this work, is a kind of laboratory that initiates, that starts this practice, this human technology, and specializing in vocal synchronization. A plexus in the body is a network, a braid of nerves coordinating distributed intelligence without centralized command. The work applies this principle to human expression and collective organization. Through gatherings, trainings, and retreats, practitioners are guided to directly sense the vibrational nature of reality and liberate their voices. Through meditation, deep listening, and somatic practices, they gradually expand the full spectrum of vocal expression. Many report that in this process of allowing, they encounter a force within their own voice that breaks through blockages and restores authenticity and aliveness. Learning to deeply know, allow, and expand our voice is a path of aligning with an already existing orchestration, the original matrix of life. This is our birthright and is accessible to all, but our minds do need to be on board. What Plexus is working towards is a voice centered, awareness based ontology where the voice is a primary agent, not merely a tool for communication. The voice does not only reveal form through resonance, but originates it. It is the creative principle from which body, mind, and culture solidify. The voice is a generative force that creates and aligns awareness with biorhythms, affective states, psychological containers, and social interactions. It is deeply diagnostic as well as creative, whether heard or unheard. 3. Voice as the ultimate synchronizer between intention and creation. I am well aware that when I say voice, most people think I mean singing or speaking. But voice is not just doing, it is also being. It is not just giving, it is also receiving. Voice emanates even without our intention. If you're reading this, you're breathing, and that breath is already setting your vocal folds into subtle vibration, a transparent, unheard sound. Unintentional vocalization shows us the importance of vocal function. We yawn to discharge, sigh to reset, cry to reorganize affect. Vocalization coordinates breath, vagal tone, muscular tension, and attention. Plexus harnesses this innate biological function into a conscious practice of synchronization. Heard voice emerges when awareness follows the natural process and will introduces just enough resistance to generate sound. Allowing the voice to flow without agenda, without pouring it into the patterns of language or bending it to fit aesthetic standards, is healing in and of itself. Voice does not need to be made coherent. It produces coherence. It is self-organizing life. For over 20 years, my practitioners and I have observed this directly. Voice informs without explaining, harmonizes from the inside out, and guides processes of healing, transformation, and radical self-authorization. Voice beyond expression. If we expand voice beyond communication into a creational principle, we discover that voice does not come from the body at all. The body is a condensation of voice. Music precedes the cathedral. Our work starts by attuning to the fullness of experience, weaving our participation as it is arriving and dissolving. So this is a very important point that I want to rest here for a moment and really turn over the kind of normalized type of thinking which says voice is secondary to the body. So first there is the body and then there is the voice. And what I'm saying is that in order to even have a body, somebody had to sing it. Maybe not us, maybe the angels, or maybe the song of biology. It doesn't matter what you believe, but somebody created an incredible synchronized orchestra, musical, very deeply musical instrument, which is the body. And to assume that there was no intentional weaving involved in the body is, I don't know, to be very blind. And when we kind of take that thought further, we see, okay, the voice is, we are actually part of an infinite channel, and the voice is sort of intentionally condensing this channel into a body, so solidifying it, and then in this solidification, in this possibility to become matter, through that condensation there is also a resonance, and that resonance is actually the voice. And when our consciousness is using that platform of the body to sound, that is the weaving of all of past and future intention and will, this thing around matter. So this is a huge mystery, but really just to offer this possibility that voice is actually primary to the body and not the other way around. Let's continue. Understanding voice as co creator in vibrational reality. Acoustically, sound reveals what Buddhism calls anicca, the fundamental principle of impermanence. Our mind creates the illusion of fixedness, but deeply listening to sound reveals pulsation, arrival and disappearance of sounds in each moment. So, this was one of my first moments of awakening when I was around 17 or 18. I did Vipassana back in Israel, and I did have an experience of a dissolution of my sense of fixedness. It was a very pleasant, very blissful experience where I literally felt myself to be a field of vibration. And that was such a pivotal, important experience in my life that I could not go back into trying to learn something and become someone, but really wanted to go deep and understand the nature of things, the nature of reality. So that moment of discovering that what we think is fixed and done is actually a pulsating, appearing and disappearing field of vibration is a very important first step. And this is actually what I call vibrational reality, which is available to us if we attune to it. Um, so our minds really create this illusion of fixedness, and a lot through the sense of sight, yeah. But when we are deeply listening to sound, it will reveal to us this pulsation quality, this arrival and disappearance of sounds in each moment. And you can really take a moment to listen to sounds, and I can guarantee to you that all the sounds are in a process of arrival and disappearance. They are actually, when we notice them, they are in a process of disappearance, right? Even the apparatus of the voice demonstrates this. Vocal folds allow or restrict air during exhalation. Excuse me, I'll just have a drink. Through precise muscle tonality, they generate tiny thrusts of air organized in a frequency. So they push the air out, and the vocal cords are closing and opening just enough and then closing right back again. So the voice is like continuous pulsations of tiny air thrusts that create a vibration in the vocal cords. And this is sound being born and dying at the same time. This is the genesis of the voice. The generative moment, by zooming into that pulsation with our attention, with our listening, guided by the sense of touch, so not going after the sonic resonance and implications through sound, but really feeling how does it literally feels like the friction, and really going after that, we close the gap between our will and life's response, right? Because we have an intention and immediately we feel the way it touches our body. The voice becomes an alchemical petri dish where intention and impact can be experienced as one at the same time. Habitual patterns surface. Yeah, we can really see then how we are gripping our jaw, how we're making too much effort at the beginning of the exhale, how we're collapsing and closing our mouth with a closure. So these are all expressional signatures of how we enter, sustain, and withdraw in life. Tuning into the origination of our voice, we encounter ourselves undivided, activating and regenerating pathways of expression. When we let go of what should be and join what is, creation flows from fullness rather than lack. So there is a sense of surrendering to trying to make our voice sound a certain way, and seeing where it goes when we really allow it to flow through pleasantness. And what I'm saying is that it will take you somewhere, and that somewhere is usually more healthy, more suited to who you are, will tell you about yourself. So it's not empty in the sense that it is empty in the sense that it emanates from emptiness, but along the way it can show us a lot who we are and can help us harmonize without needing to explain and have this understanding versus experience thing that we usually do when we think about ourselves. Yeah. So the voice allows us to think about ourselves and to touch ourselves at the same time. So intention and reality then synchronizes. The voice entrains, it does not just express. So when you vocalize, breath and larynx, nervous system, posture, and hearing, they all entrain one another. Through continued vocalization, awareness begins to align with a larger field and individual and collective rhythms synchronize into coherence. The voice becomes a hub of cross-system synchronizations. So this is something I'm seeing a lot in groups. This expands outward, right? Heart rhythms of people align, breathing patterns converge, neural timing synchronization. Finally, you see people yawning or you see people moving, and the field starts like to harmonize, and the field becomes greater than the sum of its parts. Recent studies show that sound waves pressurize and electrically charge fascia and even influence genetic expression. Like the effect of it is deep. Through voice, awareness shapes physiology and generates relational coherence. Synchronized voices amplify one another, stabilizing physiology, enhancing awareness, and increasing the capacity to receive and transmit. So this we know, all communities that sing together, that worship together through singing, they have a way of synchronizing. It's part of what a community does in order to keep its coherence. So the voice in this field acts as a living amplifier, tuning individual streams into resonant self-organizing wholes. So it's really how the one voice, the individual, is woven into the community, and that is best done with voice. While shopping malls and armies, right, use sound to manage behavior, its effect is exponentially stronger when it's generated and arriving from within, right? So even if we are bombarded by music that is trying to program us to consume, we can tune into our own signal, our own voice, and that is exponentially stronger than anything else which may come from the outside. Yeah, the sonic environment always influences, but used correctly, your voice offers vibrational immunity. And this is something really interesting that I found out. One of my favorite examples: if an ambulance passes by, instead of covering your ears, try raising your own voice at a similar frequency and intensity as the siren. The muscular engagement stretches your eardrums and reduces sensitivity to the harsh sound. So when we are actually matching the environment with our own frequency, it creates a sort of immunity, and I call it a vibrational martial art. The liberated voice taps into the living signal while shaping body, mind, and field. 4. Synchronization, arriving at right relation. So right relation is an indigenous concept, and it evolved through nurture, curiosity, and acknowledgement of the other as a living being. One could, of course, attempt, as religion or bureaucracy has, to enforce lawful protocols of behavior, but look what that approach yields. Alignment cannot be forced. No rules or policies can compel synchronization. Synchronization is a practice rooted in surrender. In practical terms, it means admitting that even though I have needs and wants, the nature of things is already perfectly designed beyond any comprehension of separateness. I am already part of something greater simply by being alive. To surrender is to step out of any story imposed upon reality, to momentarily evacuate my perceptual apparatus so that new movements can enter. This is why the pulsation principle is essential, moment to moment appearing, moment to moment fading into silence. And from that perspective, you do not impose, you weave. Think of it this way: nature is already singing. Synchronization is learning to hear the music and find your own part in it, rather than trying to conduct the orchestra from an isolated room, oblivious to your own vibrational imprint. So now I want to talk about plexus, the plexus framework. This work unfolds through 4 stages. The first one is initiation into vibrational reality. This is learning to sense reality as vibration rather than fixed forms. It's supported by compassionate listening and attuned touch. Practitioners are learning to surrender to the voice's guidance. So that's really learning to have that awareness of reality as vibration and your own voice and your own being as interwoven in this field. The second part is mapping the instrument. So this is exploring the voice through anatomical, energetic, and psychological maps. Habitual vocal patterns are traced back to their somatic and psychic origins. So it's really learning to understand who is the voice when it's when it's resonating in the heart or emanating from the heart, and how does it connect to the belly and to the head. We work with different mapping, different models here. So we work with the chakra system, we work with different types of maps and models to create really this instrument. The third part is attuning to relational resonance. So this is practicing vocal mirroring, synchronization with others, learning to entrain, differentiate, and heal through sound relationships. So this is a lot around like, okay, we are understanding this vibrational reality, liberating our voice, creating our instrument. How do we then relate? How do we collaborate? How do we cooperate in this new way of being, which is not guided by regulation and labels and governance and identity, but is actually organized by resonance. So this is something we need to translate into our social interaction. And this is what the third layer is all about, where we arrive to number 4, vocal plexus practice, interwoven vocal collaboration, weaving voices into a wider entrained fields and generating plexi. So this is really this community sort of, I would say, non-religious worship. It's really around creating composite systems of listening and transmission where you can really receive downloads that you wouldn't receive otherwise. It has a sense of remembering a technology that we did or we're doing, but really from a different place, from a place where we are free to bring our own voice. We don't lose ourselves in the collective, but we are fully ourselves. And by being fully ourselves, we actually create like a super organism that is made out of creators, not out of drones, but out of creators. And that's for me, that's really interesting. Like, how can you create a hive of creators, right, rather than a hive of queens, right, rather than a hive of just workers, and us being able to go through all the roles of being a drone, being a worker, being a queen, vocally moving through these roles in a flexible way. The simplest practice, right where you are, close your eyes, notice the sensations in your body. You can do it. Notice all the sounds around you, feel them touching your skin, opening your sensitivity to what's happening at the vibrational level. Follow your breath, your heartbeat. Open your mouth and allow a sigh to emanate, sound pouring out like water, weaving into the already existing fullness of the vibrational field. And now listen. So this is a very fast preliminary sound meditation you can always do. Start from listening to your own sensations in the body, then becoming aware of the sounds and creating a kind of bridge where the sensations in the body and the sounds are actually on the same continuum. That would be the first thing to do. I want to say that this work is indeed accessible because we all have a body, we all have a voice, but it's not necessarily easy, because it requires facing precisely what we've used our persona to hide. And we need to feel safe to do that, and we need to feel ready. And you cannot, as we said, we cannot impose synchronization. So that really has to be out of everyone's free choice. The good news is that when you do choose that, it restores the power and clarity to create new structures instead of the old ones that are going to fall apart. You will have new relational standards and creative dreams to guide you and match your newfound freedom. Okay, number 5, we're almost there. The practice of surrender. Synchronicity. So Anyone who has synchronized, who has worked with synchronizing, whether it's through dance or through breath work or through voice, you know that synchronicity naturally follows. A friend would call when you think of them. A sign on the street echoes your conversation. It's sort of a state where everything starts to make sense. Synchronicity is life's way of winking back at us, an acknowledgement of our openness to synchronizing with it. So there is a sense of coherence in the greater field. Divine entrainment. So synchronization is not merely biological, it is an alignment with a higher order where the voice carries both directive and creative will. In this framework, voice both receives and transmits. Like a radar, it senses the dark field of possibilities and projects light and coherence into it. And one last secret before we part: keep on singing so you can hear. Embrace the paradox. Surrender is not abandonment of self, desire, or uniqueness. By becoming aware of our voice in every moment, we deepen our receptivity and connection with life. One, we are all voices in the one consciousness, emanating from silence into form, then dissolving back. We are all of it: the silence, the form, the arriving, the departing, everything and nothing at all. Singing the one eternal song over and over again, ever renewing. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this, please let me know. Please check out the footnotes in the original essay, and take care until we see you next time.